Arsenal won, Brighton won. Another game where Arsenal dropped points to Brighton with a controversial VAR decision that may have changed the outcome of the game. In today's video, we're going to break down what we learned from the game. I am going to give you my thoughts on the game in a minute, talking about my thoughts on Arsenal, where they need to improve, where they were unlucky. VAR, look, rubbish decision, was never a penalty. We'll talk about Nwaneri. I thought Declan Rice had a good game. I also want to talk about Baleba and Joao Pedro because I actually said back in summer that Liverpool should look at signing Joao Pedro, and I want to talk a little bit about him and what a player he is and how he'd benefit some of the big teams. We'll talk about Baleba. We'll get into detail about the Arsenal game, what we learned in individuals. But I want to start this video by talking about the title race. You know, Liverpool, if they beat Man United tomorrow, and hopefully Ruben Amorim's going to do something crazy and get Man United's 3 points, even though we haven't scored at Anfield in 6 years, which is quite worrying. I think the last time we scored at Anfield was Jesse Lingard in the Premier League, which is very worrying, and I'm very scared. And I did predict Liverpool to win 2-0. But you never know. Maybe Man United will do something, but Arsenal fans, you really can't rely on us. Liverpool could go 8 points clear with the game in hand, which means they could go 11 points clear if they win that game over Everton. Now, 11 points clear of 18 games to go. Right now, I don't see Liverpool dropping 11 points, and I still see Arsenal dropping points if they do not bring investment in because Saka is out. Now, I think Arsenal were unlucky today, and I will say this. Arsenal fans, they go on a lot that they're robbed and VAR this and VAR that. I think they've been unlucky with VAR decisions. I feel the luck hasn't swung their way. But I've seen, Liverpool have some unlucky VAR decisions. I've seen Man United be shafted. It's just not gone your way this season. But that was one of the worst penalty decisions I've seen, and it was never a penalty. And I will talk about the game, and I will talk about my thoughts, and I will talk about who was good, who was poor, where Arsenal can improve. But we're going to talk about the title race quickly, because for me, unless Mohamed Salah gets an injury, I don't see anyone catching Liverpool. Arsenal have to make a statement signing in January if they do. They need to make a statement signing in January. They need an attacker. They missed Havertz today. That was key. And I think they were unlucky to have Havertz and Saka out, to have a lot of key players out. That was unlucky. Odegaard just didn't look fully fit. They had Timber out as well. Timber would have started a right back. Havertz would have started the Jesus, who had a poor game today. Partey would have gone in midfield. Jorginho probably wouldn't have played, and Jorginho was quite poor today. Arsenal were very unlucky today because they go to Brighton away, and Arsenal have struggled away a little bit more this season. And it's a very difficult game against a very physically good Brighton side. We're going to talk about Baleba in a second. But they scored the first goal. They looked right. But in the second half, I thought Brighton were really good. And I actually thought when it was 1-1, Brighton looked more like winning that game. And I don't like to say this because I do think people exaggerate a bit. They talk about Arsenal only being good at set pieces. No, Arsenal have played some good football and open play. But I felt in this particular game, the only goal that was going to come for Arsenal was from a set piece, because I felt that Arsenal were exhausted and the sickness bug had sort of impacted them all. They felt exhausted. You could see the squad was narrow. You could see the squad was thin. And Arsenal need an addition in attack. They need an addition in attack. Because for me, Liverpool are going to walk away with the league. And I'm in a weird position because I really enjoy watching Arsenal lose and drop points and the meltdown. But I'm really not enjoying this because I'm thinking, well, Chelsea keep dropping points. Man City are way too far behind and they played 2 crap teams. I think they'll start losing again. Like, the team that's most likely to catch, like, Liverpool this step rate is Newcastle. No, I actually think Arsenal will finish second. But, like, it feels like no one's going to catch Liverpool. And it's so annoying because you look at Liverpool, and this is the key difference. Luis Diaz in the form of his life. Cody Gakpo cannot stop scoring. Jota comes on, he's clinical, he's clutch. And then you've got Mohamed Salah, who's the best player in the world right now. So when you look at the title race and everything that is going on, Trossard and Jota have similarities and them both been good finishers in clutch. Martinelli today, poor. Martinelli's hit and miss. You don't really get from Martinelli. He's not consistent enough for Arsenal to rely on him. And yes, Calafiore and Marino on the left-hand side with him make him look a lot better. But he's not doing enough. He's not good as Diaz. He's not as good as Gakpo. Jesus is very hot and cold. Havertz would have been needed today, I think, for sure. Havertz, solid player. Saka, unbelievable player. But they got Salah. Salah's still better than Saka, and Saka's an unbelievable player. They've got Diaz and Gakpo and Jota that can play in the middle. They've got the talent out wide. And also, Liverpool's midfield, Gravenberch, McAllister, Jones, Szoboszlai, all been excellent. And the defence, Konate, Van Dijk, been absolutely excellent. And Arsenal's strength is defence, but Liverpool have conceded the least amount of goals in the league. So if Arsenal want to catch Liverpool, they need to make a statement signing an attack. I think defensively they're fine. I did think they gave Brighton a bit of space today in that second half, but I think that was more due to exhaustion. But if Salah gets injured and they make a big attacking signing, the title race isn't over. Maybe if Man United win tomorrow, the title race isn't over. But I'm saying this as a Man United fan that really doesn't want Liverpool to win the league because Liverpool will equal our 20 titles. Yeah. Now, were Arsenal robbed? Yes. No. It was never a penalty, but look at the stats. And you don't even need to look at the stats. I watched the game. Brighton were the better team in that second half, and Brighton deserved the goal. Now, if you actually think about it, you could say that penalty isn't given. Arsenal win 1-0. It's a hard-fought away win with half their squad missing. It's a good result for Arsenal. And it would have been. It would have absolutely been a good result for Arsenal, a 1-0 win like that with all the players injured. 100%. But Brighton deserves something out of that game. And while the luck hasn't gone Arsenal's way, they've missed chances, they've had injuries, they've had illness, they've had VAR decisions go against them, and they've had two harsh ones against Brighton, in my opinion. They had a silly sending off against Manchester City. Decisions haven't gone Arsenal's way. I do think that while Arsenal fans could sit there and say they're robbed, and if it hadn't been the penalty, there would have been a hard-fought 1-0 win, and they could have been quite happy with that given the circumstances, you can't deny the fact that Brighton probably at least deserved a point from that game based on performance. I thought Brighton did very well. The XG is a little bit higher here according to Mark StatSpots, but I thought Brighton did very well. So I'm going to dive into the Arsenal game and my thoughts. So yeah, the penalty decision was a joke. My reaction to it was like, this reminds me a little bit of the decision that West Ham got against Man United, which got Ten Hag sacked in the end. Silly decision. It wasn't intentional. I'd be annoyed. Had those been given loads, fair enough, but you never get a penalty for that. So yeah, it was ridiculous, especially because Anthony Gordon had a similar incident in the Tottenham game earlier. But the Brighton goal felt inevitable. Brighton were excellent. Brighton looked more like to win the game in the closing minutes. And I think that was due to exhaustion and fatigue in Arsenal. But Brighton had that intensity. They were running with it in the second half. And I think, you could see Arsenal. There was injuries. There was a bit of unluck there. The bench was light. Who could Mikel Arteta turn to? I get that. They looked exhausted. They haven't had that luck. But I thought Brighton were excellent. I thought Baleba was machine. Joao Pedro was gorging Saliba, who's top 3 centre-backs in the league. Problems. It was a difficult game. And to be fair, it wasn't a penalty. I'll stick by that. As a Man United fan, it wasn't a penalty, and I'd be fuming if that was given against Man United. I'd be absolutely fuming. And people say, does Mikel Arteta have a plan B? He seems to not have a plan B this season. Where's Slot? And if we talk about Liverpool, Arne Slot at half-time, if it's not going Liverpool's way, he'll change his tactics. The Villa game, the Brighton game, the Ipswich game, the Southampton game, Arne Slot will come out with a different tactic or a different formation. And that is one of the reasons Liverpool are top of the league. And Arteta doesn't do that. Now, in fairness to Arteta today, the squad was incredibly thin. I can't expect him to have too much of a plan B. But Liverpool have also had injuries and also had a thin squad. At times, but not to the extent of Arsenal in terms of, Odegaard and Saka are Arsenal's 2 best players. Van Dijk and Salah are probably Liverpool's 2 best players. They haven't lost their 2 best players, but Trent, they've lost, big loss. Konate, they lost, big loss. Alisson, they lost, big loss. But I think one of the things that Slot has over Arteta is he seems to have a plan B. Now, I can't have a go at Arteta for not using a plan B today because I think that the bench was light. I think Arsenal did all right, and then they went 1-0 up and they dropped off. And I think one thing Arsenal continue to do this season is when they go 1-0 up, they seem to go a bit too defensive. And that's something that maybe Arteta's going to have to stop. Maybe Arteta's going to have to adapt because I think they invite on pressure and they play worse after scoring. And yeah, Saka's their best player. Odegaard looked off when he came on. The team looks physically drained. But the 7 draws this season, they're not losing. And that is a positive in itself. And you had 12 draws when you were the Invincibles. But the Premier League, you have to get more points now to win it. The 7 draws highlight the need for a killer in attack. Jesus has been good lately, but he didn't bring anything today. Havertz was the kind of player that was probably needed in that game today. You need because of Saka's injuries, you need it, and everything. You need a squad depth winger. Maybe that's a Dibbling, someone that's young that's going to come in and learn. Maybe that's a Semenyo. You need a squad depth winger. You also need a long-term left winger. Maybe that's Nico Williams, who, to be honest, hasn't been particularly good this season. I think Anthony Gordon would be amazing for you, but Newcastle I cannot see him selling him, especially in January. I know Liverpool were interested last year, but he would cost a fortune. And obviously Isak's the one in the middle, but you can't get Gordon and Isak. And again, people were having a go at me when I suggested that Arsenal should call out for Isak. I'm not saying that Isak's going to leave Newcastle, and I'm not saying that Isak's going to go to Arsenal, because Arsenal would have to pay like 150 million for Newcastle to consider selling him. Let's be honest. But I'm saying he would be perfect for Arsenal, but I don't know if that happens. That's what I'm saying. But you can see what they need. Maybe a Chokerez would have been good in that game, a killer. I know it is the Portuguese league, but he is much of a killer. I think they need that because I think that's the difference between them and Liverpool. even with Saka and Odegaard, Arsenal still needed additions in attack. Without Saka, they need more additions in attack. You know, if Liverpool didn't have Salah, you know, there's Chiesa there, but is he going? You just don't know. Liverpool's attack is more killer. Salah is the best player in the world, but they have players like Jota that is clutch. But that's your trust side. Diaz and Gakpo, all options. Even Darwin Núñez works incredibly well, but he's a bit iffy at the moment. But they've got an abundance of quality. They've got Trent that can play this special pass. And what Arsenal need if they're going to catch Liverpool is that player that's giving them that extra bit of quality, a game winner. Man United fans, you know, sometimes get annoyed at Bruno because he gives the ball away. And I'm not saying Arsenal need Bruno Fernandes, he wouldn't suit your system. But Bruno Fernandes, when Man United were good under Ollie, we came second because we played crap, but Bruno Fernandes would produce a moment where we'd win a game. And Odegaard's a fantastic player in terms of retention and everything, but he doesn't take those risks. And no one in Arsenal takes those risks. And maybe they need someone like not Bruno as himself, but you know how Bruno takes risks. And even when United were struggling, Bruno would come up with something. In general, I thought Declan Rice had a really good game. I thought he looked the most fresh. Obviously, he's had a couple of breaks. I thought he was probably your best player. I think Nwaneri, considering his age and out of position, he caught his goal, he did his job. For Jorginho, really struggled. Jorginho looks like he's not physically cut for the level anymore. I want to give Nwaneri a shout out because 5 goals and 5 starts, 17 years of age. At his age, it's not about the all-round performance, it's about sparks that you see. And I thought that, you know, there's a really good talent there. He's scoring goals at a young age. And when you watched him last game when he didn't get a goal and assist, he was the best player on the pitch. So last game he didn't get a goal and assist, but he's the best player on the pitch. Today he did get a goal. And if you can have games where he doesn't score and is one of the best players on the pitch and then also can get the numbers, that's the makeshift for what is a good player. And Nwaneri becomes the first ever Arsenal player to score multiple Premier League goals before turning 18 as well. So let's dive into some more. How can Arsenal improve? Attacking signings, 100%. I think Arteta needs to stop going defensive after scoring. I think they invite pressure on after scoring. You go defensive. I think that's one thing Arteta should work on. I get today why he did it. It was, can you go away to Brighton with a depleted squad, with a nil scored, nick a 1-0 win? I get it in this kind of circumstance today. Wasn't going to be an easy game. I think team looks physically exhausted, but you can't rotate a lot in this period of time. I remember last year Arsenal dropped off. They went on that Dubai trip. They had a bit of a break and they came back so much better because they got that rest. They do look exhausted. There's too many games, but they're playing the same amount of games as Liverpool. You can't be an excuse. And they do seem to miss chances. They don't seem to be as clinical. They had chances to win the Everton game. They had chances to win the Fulham game. Were they particularly great? No. But they had chances to win those games for sure. And that would have put you on 6 more points. So even if you drop points today, you're only 2 points behind Liverpool, and then you're still within the race. But yeah, out of possession, Arsenal have been very good this season. They're one of the best teams in the league out of possession. You could argue the best. They were definitely last season the best out of possession, but they did give Brighton too much space. But I think that was due to exhaustion. It wasn't going to come for them, you know, today in the legs and open play. I thought Smith Rowe and Vieira's presence could have been of use today, and I think the fact that Smith Rowe and Vieira went and they weren't really replaced, and no Marino came in, I thought that was the player they were almost crying out a little bit for today. And I think if they could maybe get Dani Olmo, that would be a good addition. I look at Dani Olmo, Xavi Simons type players, and I think they could suit them. Now, do you know who my man of the match was? Baleba. This guy was a monster. Martinelli ran right into him. So soft from Martinelli today, but just physically, I thought he was the difference because he ran the show in terms of his pace, his ground coverage. He's so quick. He's very good at carrying the ball. He'll catch you. He'll win the ball back. He's press resistant, could turn away from the press, break the lines with his pass. He's someone that's physically good. He's someone that's technically good. And I'd be shocked if Man United, maybe even Liverpool, I know they're looking at some Monday, but Man United, Liverpool, Manchester, this is what Manchester City need. Manchester City need Baleba. He would improve Arsenal. He'd improve Tottenham. He'd massively improve Manchester United. Liverpool could do with him. Chelsea, they've got Caicedo and Enzo, so maybe not. But this is a guy that I would be shocked come summer if none of the big teams were in for him. I would be absolutely shocked because he is some player. It was also another player that I think is unbelievable was Joao Pedro. Got a goal today. I took him out of FPL because I thought Arsenal got a good defensive record. You silly. But yeah, today I did a tweet on Joao Pedro and I said Joao Pedro, Cunha, Morgan Rogers are my favourite profile of players in football right now. And I suggested that Liverpool looked at Cunha and Joao Pedro back in the summer when I did a video. But Joao Pedro has got the pace and dribbling ability of a winger. You know, he can carry it like a winger. He's got the creativity of a number 10, but he's also got the physicality of a striker, which makes him such a good player because he can carry the ball, he has the pace, he has the power, he has the movement, he has the instinct, he has the finishing, he has the link up. He's a physical player that Saliba, who's really good athletically, you know, fast, quick, physical, he was finding his match today. He was causing problems. I think Joao Pedro is an unbelievable player. So what Arsenal could have done with Joao Pedro today as well. Anyway, people, let me know your thoughts on the game down below. This is my review of the game, as well as a bit of talk about the title race. Can Arsenal catch Liverpool? Let me know in the chat. Thank you for watching. Bye.